It's been a while that CLAT has happened. 2 से 3 काउंसलिंग लिस्ट भी आ चुकी है एंड यू नो फॉर अ मैटर ऑफ फैक्ट दैट यू आर नॉट मेकिंग इट टू एनएलएस. बट अभी भी दिल में एक इच्छा है कि अपनी लॉ डिग्री तो एनएलएस से ही कंप्लीट करनी है. इफ यू आर वन ऑफ दोज मेनी एस्पिरेंट्स हु स्टिल फील दैट दे वांट टू परस्यू देयर एनएलएस ड्रीम, then I have a good news for you, because your NLS dream is not done yet. And in this video, we are going to discuss one such opportunity that presents its way to you so that you can enter your dream law school, that is the National Law School Bangalore, and pursue your law degree from there. It may take a slightly more time than the conventional 5-year degree to do that, but I think it's still better than nothing, and it's still better than going to a private college and then regretting all your life that you did not make it to NLS. So stay tuned in this video. We are going to discuss an important topic, an important exam, and that is the National Law School's admissions test for the BA degree, by which you will make it to the National Law School Bangalore and pursue a 3-year BA degree, that is a Bachelor's in Arts. And after that, NLS also presents another opportunity, and that is the NLSAT LLB, by which you can pursue a 3-year LLB degree. So technically, you will be pursuing the same 5-year LLB degree that presents its way via CLAT in 6 years, but in a more holistic manner, wherein you will be covering the first 3 years in a BA degree, a BA honors degree, and then you will be pursuing your LLB honors degree. So stay tuned, because this video is going to be very important if you are one of those aspirants who have not yet given up on your NLSAT or your NLS dream. So didn't clear CLAT, here's your second shot. If CLAT didn't go your way, NLSIU is still possible. And how is that? It is possible via the NLSAT-BA route. That is the National Law School's admission test for the BA honors program. So it is a separate entrance test conducted by National Law School Bangalore for its BA honors program. It is not CLAT 2.0. It's an entirely different exam. The CLAT consortium does not have any role to play in this exam. It's entirely conducted by the authorities at the National Law School Bangalore, and that is why I can attest to the quality of this exam. It is way better in all aspects than the common law admission test, or commonly known as CLAT, because it is NLS itself that sets this paper. The quality and the standard is very high, and there are no mistakes and no ambiguities as seen in the CLAT paper. So if you are a serious aspirant who missed out on CLAT, not because there was something lacking in you, but because of the external factors related to either the paper or the consortium, and you feel that you were treated unfairly because the paper came way too easy, or that you were prepared more than what the paper came about, then this is your shot, where if you were a serious aspirant for CLAT and you are willing to give another serious shot to it, you will be able to make it to this paper. Let me tell you some basic things about this paper. So now approximately 2 months are left for the paper. Registrations are still going on, so do not worry if you are watching this video for the first time in March. Applications I think are open till 22nd of March, so you still have time to register. But do keep an eye out on the official website for the same. So the exam is on 26th of April, approximately 2 months from now, on the Sunday. The timings is 10 AM to 12:30, so keep a note of that. Total intake 60 seats for the BA honors program. It might seem that the seats are way too less, but let me tell you, the competition is much lesser, or much lower as compared to CLAT. Last year, not every seat in the 60 seats were filled, simply because the competition was not that much and not a lot of people appeared for the exam. So even though there were 60 seats allotted last year, not every seat was taken up because the number of students were so less. So this year we are expecting the competition to slightly increase a bit, but it will still be a relatively easier exam for you if you have given a serious shot at CLAT earlier. So 60 seats for the BA honors program, and in the 60 seats you can choose in which course you want to major in. So the options available are history, sociology, anthropology, economics, and politics. You can decide to major in either of these subjects. Mode is offline. There will be offline centers for the paper. Check out the nearest center to you. Duration of the exam is 150 minutes, that is 2.5 hours, and total marks are 150 marks, 75 in part A and 75 in part B. You might be wondering what these parts are. Stay tuned, we will be covering this. It's a little different from CLAT because CLAT is entirely objective paper based on MCQs. The part A of this paper is very similar to CLAT with respect to the MCQs, or the objective questions that are asked. But in part B, the thing changes, the game changes. Part B is a subjective sort of a paper in which you will be given prompts, and you have to write essays or answers based on those prompts. Don't worry, we will be discussing those prompts also in this video. So let's discuss the exam structure. So part A comprises 75 MCQs. Every MCQ carries 1 mark. The syllabus is reading comprehensions, exactly similar to CLAT. Current affairs and GK, very similar to CLAT. Critical reasoning, exactly similar to CLAT. and quantitative reasoning mostly similar to CLAT in the sense that the topics that become relevant for quantitative techniques remain the same, that is percentages, ratio proportion, averages, some basics of profit loss, simple interest, compound interest, etc. But the passage that is asked is slightly longer and it is more in the form of reading comprehension than in the form of data interpretation that is asked in CLAT. But the questions remain exactly similar or very similar to CLAT, and it's very basic, the maths that is asked in this paper. Basic calculations, percentages, formula use, data interpretation, etc. Very important to note, +1 for correct answer and -0.25 for wrong or unanswered. So here's again another difference between NLSAT-BA and CLAT. In CLAT, there is no negative marking for unattempted questions, but there is a negative marking for unattempted questions here as in the paper. So our main takeaway from that is that you have to go all in, you have to attempt all the questions, because marking a wrong answer is the same as leaving the question unattempted. So it's always better to take a chance and go for the answer. Now, so let's discuss part B. We will primarily discuss part B in this paper because part A anyone can ace. I'm sure you must have given countless sectionals, countless mocks when you were preparing for CLAT. So you have a basic understanding of what reading comprehension is, how do you identify the main idea of the passage, what is the difference between assumption, premise, conclusion, inference, strengthening, weakening, etc. So that is not very difficult for you. At least that is what I am assuming, because we have prepared for CLAT and given one of your best shots. But what is the main game changer in NLSAT-BA, why everyone cannot crack it, is because of part B. Part B is the subjective answer writing. So what happens is, a lot of you, when you're preparing for CLAT, you take dummy admissions or you stop going to the school, you do not interact with a lot of people, and that constricts your ability to write in a structured manner or think in a structured manner. You are now trained to read a passage and answer mechanically the most obvious option or the most appropriate option. But when it asks you to think critically and write critically, that is where a lot of people struggle. So I will discuss what part B actually tests and how do you go about preparing for part B. So part B of the paper comprises 75 marks and it comprises of two parts. First is the short answer component and second is the long answer or the essay component. So the short answer component is of 12.5 marks and has 4 questions. So this means it is for a total of 50 marks. And the essay component, the essay that I am talking about, essay is of 25 marks and there is only one essay. So total it becomes 75 marks. So part A is 75 marks, reading comprehension, critical reasoning, basics of maths and current affairs. And part B is also 75 marks but divided into 2 parts, the short answer component and secondly the essay component. So what do short answers test? So they test you based on extracts, passages from contemporary texts. It requires an analytical response to the prompt. You have to analyze everything. If there is a prompt given to you, you have to discuss it in detail. You have to write what you think about it, what is a normative viewpoint to think about that topic, and what is the public debate ongoing regarding that particular topic. Each question carries 12.5 marks and it tests you. This is very important. The part B of this paper tests you on your critical analysis, your ability to take a clear position, your ability to identify assumptions, and ability to offer alternative explanations. So you have to rebut or provide counter arguments also and address counter arguments to the argument that you are making. We will discuss this. Don't worry, we are going to discuss a sample question. So don't worry if you still have questions in your mind. Now we will move on to the essay component, the second part of part B. So what does it test? It is based on a prompt or a keyword. It comprises of 25 marks and it is evaluated on your clarity of interpretation, your strength of argument, your use of facts and examples, and your structure and coherence. If you prepare specifically for this pattern, not CLAT habits, 60 focus days are enough to become competitive. So a lot of times people have been asking me recently that are 60 days enough to crack NLSAT? The simple answer is a very affirmative yes. And why do I tell you that? That is because you have already prepared for CLAT. Technically, you can assume that your part A is strong. You only need to brush up some of your concepts in reading comprehension and critical reasoning. Like you can go back and revise what assumption negation technique is, or what is the difference between assumption and premise, or how do you go about approaching a main idea question, or some very important tones, literary devices, etc. That is all you need to do. And also you have covered most of the GK from last year because of your CLAT exam. All you need to do is now brush up some more GK from December, January, February, March, etc. Not a lot of work, very easy if you give CLAT a very serious shot. So part A is technically done for you, it is sorted for you. All you need to do in the next 60 days is focus on part B. And how do you focus on part B? You give mock. And how do you give mocks? You enroll with the test series. So right now I think only NLTI is offering a test series for the NLSAT-BA program, but But you can go back if you are not willing to spend any more money, if you had already exhausted all your budget on your CLAT coachings and now your parents are not willing to enroll you for another coaching, you can simply solve the PYQs that are freely available on the NLTI website and the official website of NLS. So now in the next 60 days, all you need to do is simply focus on part B, improving your answers, improving structure of your answers, strengthening your arguments, and bringing in external knowledge and examples to bolster the argument that you're making. Now, let's see something about part A, what the paper makes clear. So this is a passage that is given in one of the previous year papers that have been released. This is a sample paper that was released this year. So what does this tell us? So look at this passage, go back, read it at your own pace. So what does it test? It is reflective. The passage is very reflective. It moves between childhood memory, environmental damage, and a quiet critique of progress. The questions aren't asking for facts. They're asking you to understand tone, implication, regret, geography, emotional change over time. If you read this casually, you will miss half of it. So your preparation cannot be speed reading practice. It has to be interpretation practice. I think it's very simple for you. There's nothing new that I spoke about in the last 1 minute when I was reading out what was written on the slide. Because this is exactly what you have been preparing for CLAT. CLAT does not ask you mere simple fact-based questions from the passage. It asks you to think critically. It asks you to identify assumptions, premise, conclusion, inference. And that is the same that you are doing in the NLSAT-BA examination. Nothing else, just that the quality of passages might be a little more difficult, might be a little more towards social sciences because it's a social sciences degree instead of a law degree. That's all. Nothing changes when you are preparing for part A. For the next 60 days, read editorial slowly and ask what the author is really arguing. Notice where the tone is shifting, the tone of the author is shifting. Stop choosing options that sound intelligent and start choosing options that are actually supported. Most marks are lost here because students trust instinct more than the text. Again, nothing new for you. You have been doing the same. You have to not go by the option that looks the most intelligent or the most fancy one, but you have to go by the option that is actually supported by the passage and that is actually the most appropriate one in that particular case. Now, let's look at QT, that is quantitative techniques that I told you about. Similar things, same questions as CLAT, just that the passage is a bit longer. And because the passage is a bit longer, it might require you to not rush. You have to properly read the entire passage and you have to carve out details because in the CLAT paper, everything is given to you. It's very simple to carve out details from the passage. But in a passage like this, it becomes a little more difficult to carve out facts and data because it's a whole story that has been given to you. The following excerpt with data is from Motley Fool Money, a podcast for stock investors. So it's not a passage that has been created specifically for data interpretation. It's a podcast that has happened in the past and now questions were framed based on that podcast or the speech in which figures were given. So this is where the math section slightly differs. Again, you can go back to the previous year paper and try to solve it before you decide to do something about your QT prep. But I think this is again very similar to what you have been doing already for your CLAT prep. There is a long passage given in the form of a speech or a text or an article, and based on that article, some questions are given. For example, so at first glance it feels overwhelming. Why does it feel overwhelming? Because the passage is too long. We have not seen that in CLAT. So at first glance, the passage feels overwhelming, but these questions are very basic. Demanding only careful reading, monthly versus annual figures, percentage share, second largest category, etc. Nothing complicated, but very easy to misread because a lot of facts and a lot of outside information that are not relevant to the questions is given. So it's very easy to misread, but you do not have to fall into that trap. Read it very carefully. Properly carve out all the details and the facts that are relevant for the question. If you rush, you will get these wrong. So when you practice, remember to read the numbers slowly, underline the units that are given to you, recalculate only if needed, and don't assume rankings without confirming. Let's see some questions that are there in the math section. So there's a passage and the first question is too simple. What percentage of the total average annual expenditure in 23 was spent on transportation? I'm sure we have seen this questions a lot of times in CLAT. For example, the passage has given you that 10% you saved, 10% you spent on fuel, 15% you spent on clothes, 50% you spent on food. Similarly, the question is asking what percentage of the total expenditure was spent on transportation. It's way too simple a question. If the monthly expenditure on entertainment is 415, what is the annual expenditure on entertainment? Which category represents the second largest overall share in spending? So again, the point I'm trying to convey is it's simple. It's very simple. It's not even as complex as CLAT because CLAT might test you on a lot of different topics. It might also test you on mensuration. But NLSAT, in our experience, tests you on very basic QT questions that can come from ratio proportion, percentages, averages, and derivatives like profit, loss, simple interest. That's all. Again, so this is one of the sample papers contained quant section, similar to the old CLAT pattern in which direct questions were given without a passage, but this was not seen in the final paper that came last year. So I think we can disregard it to an extent, because such questions might not be asked in the paper this year, because last year's paper also contained only passage based QT. For example, the question was, in an election for school captain, 60% of the students voted for Rekha while the remaining students voted for Arvind. If Rekha received 240 votes, how many students voted in the election? Again, 60%, if 60% of the votes mean that Rekha got 240 votes, what would 100% mean? So 1% means 4 votes. So a total of 400 students must have voted. This is a very easy question that was given in the paper. I think this question was provided in the sample papers just to tell people that you can expect maths in the paper. So this was the first sample paper released by NLS for the BA program. So I think these questions were given simply to tell people that please expect maths in the paper. So when maths actually came in the paper, it was in the form of a data interpretation, passage based only. So I think these types of questions will not be asked, it will be passage based only. So one of the samples included basic quant questions on averages, percentages, increases, etc. Don't over prepare, just be comfortable with these 3 to 4 topics, and these topics are percentages, averages, simple increase, decrease, basic ratios. And also note that accuracy matters more than speed here, because you have enough time. It's not like CLAT, you have enough time to answer 75 questions. So your accuracy matters more than your speed here, because one wrong step might cost you your seat. Now critical reasoning is again similar to CLAT. Across both paths, reasoning questions are arguments based. Strengthening, weakening assumption, these are not puzzle questions, these are logic questions. There is no analytical reasoning involved, so only critical reasoning that comes in the paper. Your habit should be to find the conclusion first, ask what must be true for it to work, and then read options. Simple approach as you followed for your CLAT prep. Once you read a passage, try to frame it in your own words, what the author meant, what the tone of the passage was, what is the conclusion of the passage, what is the inference that I'm taking away from the passage. And once you do that, all the questions that follow it will become very easy for you to answer. Do not jump straight to options. You will get pulled into very attractive but wrong answers. In 60 days, aim for consistency. This is the most controllable section. Why is this the most controllable section? Because you cannot go wrong in CR if your foundations are strong. If you know how to strengthen weaken arguments, if you know the difference between conclusion and inference, if you know how to identify assumptions, then it's very unlikely that you will go wrong in these types of questions. Let's move on to part B. Again, very important, because not everyone has information on part B. So let's discuss this particular topic. This is a question, a short answer question, which carries 12.5 marks. So the question goes like, the prompt goes like, if taxes are reduced, people will have more disposable income than that they can then spend in the market. So if taxes are reduced, people will have more disposable income that they can spend in the market. Hence, reducing the individual tax burden is good for the economy. Is this true? Argue in 150 words. So now, this is a question that has been given to you. Once you read this question, this is what you have to do. For short answers, use a very simple analytical structure. Briefly state what the question is asking, explain the key idea or concept, and develop your reasoning in 1 to 2 paragraphs. And after that, you conclude clearly. Taking the example of this question, you first state what this actually means. For example, if I am earning rupees 100, and if I am paying 20% tax to the government, that means 20 rupees out of 100 goes to the government, and I have 80 rupees for me to spend. Now the question is saying that if this tax is reduced, let's say the tax comes down to 5%. So that means people will have more disposable income that they can spend in the market. So if tax now comes down to 5 rupees, I only have to pay 5 rupees to the government, and now I can spend 95 rupees instead of the original 80 rupees. So now there's an increase of 15 rupees that I can spend in the market. So based on this premise, the question is asking, hence reducing the individual tax burden is good for the economy. So it is asking whether if I spend rupees 15 more because the tax is reduced, is it good for the market? And now you have to answer it in the affirmative or against, whether you think this is good for the market, whether you think taxes should be reduced because it will enhance the market, it will strengthen the market, or this is bad simply because the government will not have enough money to run the state, or healthcare services will be deteriorated, there will be no public welfare schemes going on. Just like that, you have to take a stance and argue in 150 words. How do you do that? So first you state in a couple of lines what the problem is asking, because you frame it in your own words, you frame the research question in your own words, and secondly you then present your stance clearly. In the second line, you present your stance that I think reducing the taxes will not be good for the economy because this ground, maybe political, economic, social ground. And then you provide your arguments in a structured manner. Firstly, why on political grounds it should not be allowed. Secondly, why economic grounds taxes should not be reduced. And thirdly, why on social grounds it should not be reduced. After that, you provide a conclusion that based on the above arguments, it is my opinion that taxes should not be reduced. Now, let's discuss the second question. if the climate crisis is all pervasive, we should stop consuming goods and services which use fossil fuel in any form, cars, planes, etc. Should we radically change our lives to mitigate the climate crisis? Discuss in 150 words. Again, a very controversial question. So you see, all these questions are not in isolation. These are questions that are very much in the public discourse because everyone says you cannot avoid death and taxes. Also, there are questions on climate justice, there are questions on climate governance, there's question on climate responsibility, who has to bear the burden. So these are the questions that are mostly seen in the public discourse, and that is why were reflected in the paper. So the question again is asking you to take a stance whether we should drastically change our lifestyle, whether we should stop consuming anything and everything that uses fossil fuel. And if you are in India, that would mean you stop consuming electricity, stop going out of your homes in any form of transport because 90% of the transport is still fossil fuel dependent. So do we need to take that step right now? Do we drastically need to change our lifestyle simply to stop consuming fossil fuel in any form? So these are the types of questions where you have to take a clear stance. You cannot simply provide arguments from both the sides. You have to take a clear stance. It is recommended that you provide a counter argument also from the other side and then address that counter argument. But it is very important you take a clear stance in the first few sentences of your answer. Now, this is the long essay that I was talking about, and this carries 25 marks. Very ambiguous and very vague concept this is, especially with respect to NLSAT-BA. So, essay topic was, write an essay focusing on any of the following words in the list given here. Gift, process, environment, apathy. So, very vague. You can choose any word out of the four and simply write a long answer based on what your thoughts are on the particular topic. So this one asks you to take a position. So what you do is you choose a clear stance, support it with reasoning, stay within word limit. There is no really enough guidance on how do you approach an essay question. Primarily, if I were in your position and I had to answer this, I would go with the safest option, that is environment, because we have been reading about the environment for the last 20 years. We know what is wrong with the environment, how we can improve the environment. Also, environment also requires you to interpret what type of environment are we looking at. Are we looking at the natural environment or are we looking at our social environment? Because we use environment in a lot of sense, that our environment is not good or our college environment is not good. That means the social company is not good. So whenever you are taking up a topic like this, you have to first define the scope of your topic. What do you mean by gift? Is it a gift that you are receiving? Is it a gift that you're giving? What does gift mean for you? Does gift mean that someone is giving you out of love and blessing, or does gift mean there is some sort of quid pro quo involved? So you have to first take up a topic and then be very sure of what you are about to say on that topic. You have to first define the scope of the topic. What does gift really mean for you? Or what does process really mean for you? What do you mean by environment? Natural environment, social environment, or what does apathy mean for you? So these are the types of questions, essay topics that were given in the last year's paper, and very ambiguous, and you had to just dump your thoughts maybe about what you feel about that particular word. Now, after we have discussed the syllabus, we can now discuss the strategy, the 60-day strategy to ace this paper. What 60 days should actually look like. So week 1 and 2, let's say you're starting in your first week of March, what should you do? So in the first 2 weeks, you have to focus on understanding the question papers. First, go through all the sample papers and all the PYQs that are available. Secondly, practice slow reading. So it's been 2 to 3 months to CLAT already, and now you might have shifted your focus on board exams or school exams. Now what you have to do is you have to go back to the habit of reading. So you can start with some practicing slow reading. You can go back to reading some editorials, some mock tests that you previously solved, or some sectional tests that you still have available in your subscription that you took for CLAT. Write short legal answers daily. This is very important. Start practicing. Start writing something. If there is a prong given to you, for example, Aravali's issue recently was very important. So if let's say the topic comes Aravali in the paper, so start writing something about it. Just know something about, let's say, take up any topic, take up a recent topic like the US tariffs. Write something about the US tariffs. Write something about North Korea. Write something about Israel-Palestine, or what the US is doing worldwide, like the US-Venezuela dispute. So just take up a burning topic and try to write 150 words essay on it. In the next subsequent weeks, start with the mock. So give 1 mock per week. Why am I insisting on a mock? It's because part B practice is very important, and part B practice also means that you get feedback on what you have written. At NLTI, whatever answers you will be writing for part part B. We have our own mentors who are studying at the National Law School Bangalore, who have gone through the NLSAT process themselves, who will now be evaluating your answers and will be telling you how to improve. They will tell you what you did well, where you are lacking, and what is the way forward. How do you go about improving your short answers and the long essay? So when you give a mock, we will also check and provide you with detailed evaluation and feedback. So one mock per week, spend serious time analyzing mistakes, and then start essay practice also very properly. In the next subsequent weeks, that is week 5 and 6, and this is also when we start entering April. So this is the time when we enter April. So in the month of April, we shift to 3 mocks per week. Time discipline becomes strict and no careless attempts. And then the last 2 weeks before the exam, we will reduce the mock volume again, increase revision and stabilize performance. So we are looking at a total of 10 mocks. This is the exact number of mocks that NLTI is providing. Till the month of March, we will give around 2 to 3 mocks, 2 to 4 mocks. And in April, we will be giving around 5 to 6 mocks. So you will have a total of 60 days to give around 10 mocks. Very important for you that you stick to this time limit and give at least 6 to 7 mocks before you sit for the actual paper. So what is the final strategy we are looking for the exam? You do not need extraordinary scores. As I already told you in the beginning, the exam is competitive, but it is not too competitive. Even if you score a decent score or a rank, you will be able to get into the National Law School Bangalore. So what we are looking at is we are targeting around 55 to 60 in part A out of 75. And this is, I am telling you, very easy because it's RC, CR, GK and maths. And maths is also easy. And 30 to 35 in part B. It might be a little difficult because you might be starting with part B answer writing after a very long time, but it is doable for you. This exam is not about being genius. It's about staying composed for 150 minutes because, as I told you, the competition is not too much. You just need to do good or well or decent to be in the top ranks in this paper, and I think you should be good to go. So this is it from this video. I hope we were able to help you. We were able to provide you with some guidance about the NLSAT-BA paper, and I hope you will be giving your best shot to this paper because this is not a light opportunity. This is a very serious opportunity, and if you make it to NLS via the BA program, also know that you have institutional preference. That is, when you give NLSAT LLB paper and you apply for 3-year LLB after your BA degree, you will get a 10% reservation, and that is a great chance at being NLS again for your 3-year LLB. So do not miss out on this opportunity. NLS is a good college. It is a growing college. It is a growing interdisciplinary university now. You should be able to spend good time in college when you are pursuing this course, and after that you are pursuing your 3-year LLB. So that's it from this video. Please let us know if we should make another video on this topic, on this paper, and if yes, on which particular topic you want us to make the video on. That's it from this one. Hope to see you at NLTI soon. We are running a course on the NLSAT-BA. We are the first ones in India to run a successful course on NLSAT-BA. So if you think you can manage the paper without any coaching's help, well and good, all the best to you. We hope to see you at NLS. But if you think you need some guidance, you need guidance from people who are already at NLS, people who have cracked this paper and know it inside out, and you need some mock practice, you can reach out to us and we will be more than happy to help you. Thank you so much. Hope to see you soon.